All right, so today we're diving into a story about two people from completely different worlds. I mean, polar opposites. You've got one person who is perfectly happy with her small, predictable life, and then you have another who has literally seen the world, lived without any limits, and is now trapped inside his own body. Their lives are about to crash into each other, and trust me, it's going to change everything.
Okay, so let's meet the two people at the absolute heart of this story. First up, we have Louisa Clark. You can picture her world as, small, comfortable. It's all about the familiar streets of her little English town. And then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, there's Will Traynor. His life was the exact opposite. We're talking a whirlwind of global travel, high-stakes finance, all of it brought to a sudden grinding halt.
So, to really get what makes this story tick, we first have to see what their lives were like before they ever met. Think of it as two totally separate worlds, just running alongside each other, about to collide. So first, let's take a walk in Lou's shoes. Her world is, well, it's cozy. It's predictable, it's safe. She's got a job at the local cafe, the Buttered Bun, lives with her family, and has his long-term boyfriend Patrick, who's, well, he's a fitness nut. Her routine is comfortable, it's unchanging. As she puts it herself, it's a pretty simple loop. I work, and then I go home.
Now, Will's life, it was the polar opposite of small. This guy was a high-flying finance whiz in London. He was an adrenaline junkie. We're talking climbing mountains like Kilimanjaro, traveling everywhere, all the extreme sports. His life was all about action, ambition, and basically refusing to let anything get in his way.
But then, in just one single tragic moment, everything changed. A motorcycle accident. And just like that, his whole world was shattered. The accident left him a C5/6 quadriplegic, completely and permanently robbing him of that life he'd built. And this is where their paths finally cross. As Will is trying to deal with this horrifying new reality, Lou's own little world gets a shakeup. She suddenly loses her job at the cafe, and that pushes her to find work, well, anywhere she can. So, their first meeting, wow, it is tense. Lou is desperate for this job, right? And she's met with this line from Will. "Good morning, Miss Clark. I hear you're my latest minder." I mean, you can just feel the sarcasm and bitterness dripping from every word. It's obvious right from the get-go. He is angry, he's difficult, and he wants absolutely nothing to do with it. And Lou's reaction, it's just as intense. Look, she's not a trained caregiver. She is completely unprepared for this wall of hostility that Will throws up. In her own words, "I started to hate him, and I'm sure he knew it." So yeah, the feeling was definitely mutual.
You see, Lou figures out pretty fast that this job isn't really about the physical stuff. There's a nurse, Nathan, who handles all that. No, her job is something much, much harder. She's supposed to be a companion, a bit of light, for a man who has zero interest in being cheered up and seems to have given up completely.
But here's the thing. There's a secret behind this job. There's a reason it pays so well and has this really strange, very specific time limit. And when Lou finds out what it is, oh man, the stakes suddenly become higher than she could have ever imagined.
So, back in our interview, Will's mother, Camilla, mentions this kind of weird condition. The contract is for 6 months, maximum. At the time, Lou doesn't really clock it. She just needs the money, right? But the reason behind that 6-month deadline, it's just devastating.
And then one day, she overhears it, a quiet, agonizing conversation between Will's parents. And she learns the truth. Will has made a deal with them. He's agreed to live for just 6 more months. And after that, he plans to go to a clinic in Switzerland to end his life.
And that one piece of information, it changes absolutely everything. This isn't just a job anymore, it's a mission. Lou realizes she wasn't just hired to be a companion. She was hired by Will's mother as a last desperate attempt to do the impossible, change his mind, to convince him that his life is still worth living. And she only has 6 months to do it.
This revelation completely transforms Lou. She goes from being this reluctant, kind of out-of-her-depth carer to a woman with a real purpose. She becomes determined to pack Will's remaining time with so much joy, so much adventure, that he'll have to choose to stay.
So she comes up with a plan. Let's call it Operation Cheer Up. It's a whole series of outings designed to crack through that cynical shell of his. We're talking horse racing, a classical music concert. She even takes him to a wedding. And not just any wedding, it's his ex-girlfriend's, and she's marrying his former best friend. Awkward.
But let's be real, it is not easy. Not at all. They're constantly running up against the tough realities of his situation. Places that aren't wheelchair accessible, Will's constant physical pain, and maybe worst of all, those uncomfortable, pitying looks from strangers that he absolutely hates.
And this all leads to this incredible moment at that wedding. They're surrounded by people from Will's old life, and Lou can just feel the pity in the air. And she just refuses to let that be his story. So in this amazing act of joyful defiance, she leans in and says, "Come on, let's give these fuckers something to talk about." And she pulls him out onto the dance floor.
And honestly, this is the turning point. As Lou sits there on his lap and he wheels them around and circles under the lights, that wall between them just crumbles. In that one moment, they stop being patient and carer. They're just Will and Lou.
But even as they're clearly falling for each other, that 6-month deadline is always there, looming in the background. Their love for each other, as real as it is, can't just wish away the core conflict here. And that brings us to the massive question at the very heart of this story.
And that question is, what actually makes a life worth living? This is what drives everything from here on out. For Lou, the answer seems to be love, connection, finding happiness in the little things. But for Will, well, for Will, it's a whole lot more complicated than that.
It's interesting because as they get closer, Will starts pushing Lou to live bigger. He sees all of this potential in her, just kind of trapped in her small town, and he challenges her to be bold, to do all the things that he can't do anymore. He's basically telling her, you cut yourself off from all sorts of experiences. How do you know? You've done nothing, been nowhere.
And from Will's perspective, his logic is tragically simple. He says it himself. I will never ever regret the things I've done. Because most days, if you're stuck in one of these, all you have are the places in your memory that you can go to. See, his life was all about doing. And now all he has are memories. He loves Lou, there's no doubt about that. But he just can't accept a life where he's only watching from the sidelines. It feels like a pale shadow of the life he lost.
So as their time together starts running out, the pressure on Lou is just immense. That clock is always there, ticking down. She has 117 days left to prove to him that a different kind of life, a new kind of life, with her in it, could actually be enough. And that really leaves us with the central, gut-wrenching question of the whole story. How do you convince someone to live when they truly believe their life is already over? It's an incredibly tough question, with no easy answers. It really makes you think. What gives a life value? And who gets to decide when it's over?